What did Malcolm know that left Bill Cosby shaken to his core? When news of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death hit, Cosby didn't just collapse from shock, he crumbled under the weight of something far deeper. Now, at 88, insiders reveal Cosby's chilling final words about Malcolm. He knew too much. Was it love, guilt, or fear? What secrets were buried between America's favorite TV father and son? This isn't just another tribute, it's a reckoning. Stay with us, because once you hear what really happened, you won't see Cosby or Malcolm the same way again. According to one inmate, Cosby whispered, "No, not Theo," clutched his chest, and sat down hard. Guards rushed him to the infirmary. The man who'd survived lawsuits, prison, and public disgrace was broken, and maybe, for the first time in decades, real. 2 days earlier, Malcolm checked into a private lakeside retreat in upstate New York. It was his sanctuary. No flashing cameras, no pressure, just jazz, poetry, and peace. He was finishing his most personal work to date, a spoken word and jazz fusion album full of raw reflection. That morning, neighbors saw him walking near the lake, headphones on, coffee in hand. Later, round midday, he slowly walked into the water. It wasn't unusual. He often meditated there, but what came next was silence. At 3:27 p.m., a hiker called 911. Malcolm was found face down in the water, unresponsive. No trauma, no foul play, just gone. The official report said accidental drowning. But those closest to Malcolm weren't convinced. For months, he'd been distant, unreachable, canceling meetings, ignoring texts. When his team listened to his unfinished album, they heard something chilling. One line read, "Fame is a funeral with flowers that never die, but the soul they honor is long gone." Then came the drafts on his phone. Never sent texts like, "If I disappear, don't blame anyone. The tide just pulled too hard this time." And a haunting Instagram post. Sometimes the silence is louder than any stage. To understand the pain, you have to go back to 1984. When America first met Theo Huxtable at just 14 years old, Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just acting, he was living. He became the face of black boyhood, wrestling with identity, hope, and heartbreak on primetime television and behind the scenes. Bill Cosby wasn't just a co-star, he was a mentor, a father figure, and in many ways, a gatekeeper. Cosby saw something in Malcolm from the very beginning. He rewrote scenes to give Theo more time. He coached him relentlessly, protected him fiercely. Crew members whispered about how obsessed Cosby seemed, hovering over takes, monitoring performances, and even policing Malcolm's behavior off camera. Some called it mentorship, others called it control, but as Malcolm matured, so did his voice. He evolved beyond the role of Theo. He explored music, poetry, and directing. He started to challenge the box that Hollywood and his on-screen father had placed him in. And with each new accomplishment, the space between them grew wider. Then came the fall. When Cosby's scandal exploded across headlines, the world waited for Malcolm's response. But he stayed silent. He didn't denounce Cosby, nor did he defend him. And that silence, according to those close to Cosby, it cut deeper than any public betrayal. One insider claimed Cosby would mutter, "Why won't he pick up the phone?" during private moments. A letter, reportedly handwritten by Cosby and never mailed, was discovered years later in his legal files. A letter meant for Malcolm, a plea, perhaps, but by then, it was too late. While the professional relationship faded, another emotional chapter quietly played out: Malcolm's deeply personal connection to Regina King. Their love story, long shielded from the spotlight, began decades ago. As teenagers in Hollywood, they crossed paths, often him on The Cosby Show, her on 227 years later. In the 2000s, they reconnected and became one of the most respected, low-key couples in black entertainment. He adored her son. She championed his spoken word. They shared red carpets and holidays. But in 2013, everything changed. There were no tabloid scandals, no explosive interviews, just a quiet separation. One day they were a unit, the next, gone. Regina King later spoke to Oprah, offering a rare glimpse into that chapter. "Sometimes love isn't enough," she said. "Timing matters." Her words echoed with loss, not anger. And those close to her say she never truly let go. When Malcolm died, Regina didn't just mourn an ex, she collapsed under the weight of compounded grief. Having lost her own son to suicide in 2022, this was another wound in the same sacred space. Then came the letter, discovered among Malcolm's belongings. In it, he wrote, "If I leave this world tomorrow, know that I loved hard. Tell Regina, I'm sorry for all the silence. She deserved more." Whether the letter was confirmed or not, Fans clung to it. For many, it gave shape to a love that never truly ended. As news spread, Hollywood stood still. The Cosby Show cast was devastated. Felicia Rashad, who played Claire Huxtable, wrote, "He was more than a son on screen. He was a gentle warrior." Tempest Bledsoe, who played Vanessa, posted an old photo caption, "We laughed until we cried. Now I'm crying for real." Raven Simone, with tears in her eyes. When Liv, he was the only one I listened to. And Kishia Knight Pulliam, who played Rudy, broke down on her podcast. "He told me never to let the world harden my heart," she said through sobs. Now he's gone. Even Cosby, silent for years, issued a rare statement through his legal team. "Malcolm was my son. This is a loss beyond words." The world responded with the hashtag Theo Forever. A mural appeared in Harlem, Malcolm smiling, with the words, "Theo taught us to dream." The image went viral, and what started as grief turned into a movement. Across the country, murals, artwork, and online tributes began appearing, his face serious, thoughtful. Poetic was painted on city walls in Chicago, Atlanta, and Oakland. A reminder of the boy who became our mirror and the man who gave us permission to feel. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just Theo, he was a poet, a mentor, a quiet revolutionary. He inspired a generation to be vulnerable. He told black boys they could cry, hope, and still be strong. He mentored rising stars like Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Jarrell Jerome, not just as actors but as voices. For truth, at Morehouse College, he once told students, "Your story is powerful. Tell it with integrity, not noise. That's the only way it will last." His influence wasn't limited to acting. His spoken word piece, The Broken Compass, is now being studied in classrooms from Spelman to Howard University. Teachers are unpacking his lines about masculinity, loneliness, and generational trauma. One student wrote in a paper, "He gave language to what we never had words for." In the wake of his passing, major networks like BET, PBS, and TV1 announced tribute specials to honor his legacy. But the most meaningful efforts came from the community. Candlelight vigils took place in Los Angeles, where he first got his big break, and in Brooklyn, where fans held a block party in his honor. Local poets recited his work well into the night, and kids danced to jazz remixes of his monologues. At Howard, a symposium titled Theo and Beyond filled every seat. Professors, artists, and activists gathered to dissect the legacy of a man who never stopped evolving. On social media, the quote, "Speak my name like music," became a mantra for emotional expression. People began sharing their own stories of struggle, heartbreak, and survival, crediting Malcolm for opening the door. Even months later, his voice lives on. In a small chapel where his private funeral was held, a recording of his final poem plays softly each day. The words echo through the halls, "If I leave with no goodbye, remember the rhythm, not the silence. Remember the fight, not the fall. And when you speak my name, speak it like music." So what really happened to Malcolm-Jamal Warner? We may never know the full truth. Was it an accident, a moment of peace that turned tragic, or the final act of a man burdened by expectation, fame, and pain? What we do know is this: Malcolm was tired, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. He had carried a mantle for decades representing strength, stability, brilliance. But beneath the spotlight was someone who never fully showed the cracks beneath the surface. As the industry moved on, as roles dried up and applause faded, he was left alone with memories and music, with letters never sent and emotions never shared. Friends say he was proud of the album he left behind. It was filled with messages of love, hope, grief, and beauty. One track, reportedly dedicated to Regina King, includes the refrain, "You were my compass when I wandered, my rhythm when I fell off beat." Fans believe this was his final offering, a love letter, a farewell, and a spiritual release. The album, now set for posthumous release, is expected to debut at #1 on the jazz and spoken word charts. All proceeds will go toward mental health organizations that support black artists and youth. His team has promised to honor his wishes and continue the advocacy. He began quietly in his final years. Malcolm's story, his rise, his silence, his art, his heartbreak resonates because it wasn't just about celebrity. It was about the cost of being seen, the burden of being a role model, the pressure to always be the strong one. In his life, he gave others permission to cry. In his death, he leaves behind a call to care. Let's remember Malcolm-Jamal Warner, not just for who he played, but for who he was: a poet, a mentor, a soul with rhythm. If his story touched you, like, share, and subscribe. Keep his memory alive, because legends don't fade, they echo. Rest in power, Malcolm. We'll never forget. Thanks for watching.